How's it going, Guardians? It is your boy Turkey here once again with another build video, and this is going to be on actually the Void Titan, and we're going to be rocking the Severance Enclosure and also the Navigator. The synergy obviously between these two being the Overshield and the Woven Mail, but this is going to provide you so much ad clear, and it's so satisfying just to see how much havoc you can really cause with this build and how clutch it really comes in whenever you put all the pieces together. And there's also a solar version of this build that I'll more than likely be releasing either later on today or tomorrow, one or the other, so keep your eyes peeled for that. The build does change a little bit, but we're able to achieve similar results, and if you're a preferred solar Titan, that one will be for you. But without further ado, let's jump into the video and the build and how we're achieving what you're going to see in the background gameplay on screen. So let's step into our Void subclass at first, obviously Sentinel, and let's take a look at our aspects first and foremost. Now this one was actually a little bit difficult for me at first. It was between Offensive Bulwark and Bastion, just because I wanted the Overshield really bad. But I figured if I really wanted to cause the explosions and cause as many reactions and wreak as much havoc as I was hoping to, it was better just to use Offensive Bulwark to have better uptime. So let's talk about that. While you have an Overshield or are inside Ward of Dawn, your grenade charges significantly faster, you have increased melee range and damage, and melee final blows extend the duration of your Overshield. I just figured I'd have this one just for the bubble. The barricade itself, it just seems like I'm not using it that often. And Offensive Bulwark, just the regeneration rate is the better trade-off rather than just having Bastion, just getting the barricade over shield. I just felt like it was just such a base thing to trade off, so it's really between those two, and I went with Offensive Bulwark for the first aspect. In the next slot, we have Controlled Demolition, and this is where a lot of the fun and the synergy between Severance Enclosure and the explosions and the finishers is going to come in. Controlled Demolition reads, hitting a target with a void ability or volatile explosion makes them volatile. Further damage to a volatile target causes them to explode, grants you and nearby allies health when volatile targets explode near you. So I really like that. Grants you and nearby allies health when volatile targets explode near you. So in essence, you're kind of supporting and healing at the same time while you're doing this, which isn't really something I'd even looked into. I just saw that whenever I was looking at the class itself. But let's look at the fragments now, and let's talk more about that. First and foremost in the fragments, we have Echo of Expulsion. Void ability final blows cause targets to explode. This is just going to cause a lot of the explosions and the volatile interactions that you're seeing in the aspects with the Controlled Demolition. So if we have a nade, a shield throw, which is also going to interact with our Severance Enclosure if you do a shield throw, that will actually still count as the void ability, and the Severance Enclosure will still proc the volatile on all the targets around. You'll see a massive explosion just from a shield throw. That's not even considering the finishers themselves. And you get the plus 10 intellect on this as well. So it's kind of a W fragment to have picked up. In our next fragment slot, we have Echo of Starvation, picking up a Void Breach or an Orb of Devour, Orb of Devour, oh my goodness, Orb of Power grants Devour. But this is huge for this build because with the Navigator that we have, we're going to have Devour and Woven Mail constantly procced for the most part. And you can use the Navigator not obviously just to shoot at the enemies, but you can shoot at your teammates and proc that Woven Mail for you and them and to refresh that uptime. And if you're using it just solely for that purpose, it's the ammo economy on it is great. You won't find yourself with low ammo for your trace rifle too often. And obviously Devour speaks for itself because you're just getting health back on each kill, and there's going to be a lot of enemies dying and exploding around you, and the synergy for it is just phenomenal. So the next fragment is Finisher Final Blows grant invisibility. Now this is interchangeable, I guess, to those who don't necessarily need it, but I think for Onslaught in particular, the invisibility on Finisher Final Blows, especially on the Titan, is really clutch. If you don't have a hunter in the class or somebody that can proc invisibility, and you're able to go, get a finisher off on a low target, low health enemy, whether it be like an Acolyte or a Drag or a Curse Thrall or anything. It could actually be a Curse Thrall. It could be a whole crowd of Curse Thrall. It doesn't even matter because you will survive the explosion with the way that this build is set up. But you also have the invisibility to negate that, what would you call it, the aggro of the enemies around you. So you can then just kind of decompress and run away for a bit, something you're not typically able to do on a Titan by themselves. In our final fragment, which also, these are just 4 huge fragments that really bring this build together and make it a lot more just playable than I would expect Void Titan to be. But this is Echo of Cessation. Finisher final blows create a burst of void damage that causes nearby combatants to become volatile. Defeating volatile targets creates a void breach. And as I mentioned earlier in our previous fragment, picking up a void breach or an orb of power grants devour. So we have multiple sources of devour here, and that's also obviously going to grant us our void weapon surges and our armor charges. So we have two huge synergies right there, explosions, and you'll see those in the background as well. And now we can move on to the armor setup as well. And once I get fully through all this, all my yapping, then I'll let you see more just fleshed out a longer strip of gameplay rather than the pieces of it that represent just each action coming together. So hopefully the presentation is working out for you all. So first and foremost, let's talk about our primary weapon, the Navigator. That is going to be the trace rifle, and this is from, the Ghost of the Deep, the dungeon. This is the reward for that. And the exotic functionality on this one is firing this weapon at an ally, grants woven mail to both the user and the target. Obviously, if you shoot at enemies and the sustained fires there long enough, you get woven mail from that also. And it's dealing sustained damage, severs the target. So we also have that in another support function. Now that is our exotic weapon slot, and our energy slot, this is interchangeable. This is really going to be up to choice for you. I like synergizing with the class, but obviously we have solar this season, so you can use solar. But if we're going to try to hone in on the void explosions, I like to stick with stuff that's going to have the opportunity to cause volatile or things like that have destabilizing rounds, since I'm not using something that, like a wave frame with repulsor or destabilizing or things along those lines. So we'll talk about the options here, and even if you don't have something that can cause volatile, there'll still be ways to just tap into the volatile. We're not rocking the fragment where you have to get a kill with your grenade to get volatile weapons. That was a hard one for me to not use. And that's one probably you could swap for the invisibility if you're more comfortable surviving without it. But for me personally, I like this setup. And these are the weapons that I would swap between, whether it be Word of Crota for the unstops, the Palindrome, one of those other. But also you have Zuli's Bane, which is solar if you're not really too worried about the void. But then you have Elsie's Rifle with rewind rounds and destabilizing. I haven't even killed anybody with it, but I knew it was the role that I wanted. I'd also deal with destabilizing rounds and repulsor brace. That would be pretty solid to get more of the void overshield. And we also have positive outlook with Zen Moment and destabilizing rounds, which you'll see a lot in the background because I'm just a fan of that archetype, very similar to the Amit AR2. So that's our secondary slot. And in our final slot, we have there's not really too many choices nowadays, especially with Void. I think Edge Transit's just going to be your best option. And if you don't have an Edge Transit, you can possibly use some type of rocket launcher for overload. I like the Braytech Osprey personally because you get bipod and field prep, not necessarily for the damage output, but for the Void synergy and the fact that you get up to 17 rockets if you are rocking Void reserves. And also we have the Hammerhead. There's tons of rolls that could be up for that, but there's multiple videos out for that one, but that's going to be another acceptable slot. And then we're going to move over to our mods on our armor. First and foremost, in our Titan Mark slot, we have 2 time dilation mods, and we don't have anything here. Whatever it takes to get you to that 100 resilience, really, it's not really much of up for debate in these slots, so I won't talk as much about that. You really just want to achieve 100 resilience. The 100 intellect is optional. That's just something I like. And we have 2 time dilation mods to have our armor charge last longer, so you have a little bit more uptime on your void surge, and that's just, that's kind of straightforward. But this right here, Proximity Ward, gain a powerful overshield while performing your finisher. It's only 2 points, and we're going to be doing a lot of finishers with Severance Enclosure, and this is going to help you survive crowds of thralls. So if you see a thrall that's finisher, you can just jump in on him and not even worry about dying, because you're going to get a huge overshield. You should theoretically have woven mail up, and it's going to cause a huge explosion around everything that will cause it all to be volatile, and I'll demonstrate some of that in the gameplay in the background. Next up, let's move on to our boots. And we have 2 Void Surge, Void Weapon Surge mods, just like I said, to buff that Void Weapon if that's what you're using. If you're using Solar, obviously you'd probably have Solar equipped in these slots if you're not really too worried about that synergy, but for me it was kind of pivotal. Next up, we have Orbs of Restoration. Picking up an Orb of Power grants a small amount of energy to your ability with the least energy. That's just because we're going to be tossing our shield around and tossing our grenades and our barricade just here and there to block off areas and onslaught. And then obviously Intellect, like I said, we don't need to discuss those that much. And next up, we have our exotic slot in the chest. And this is obviously Severance Enclosure. And its armor perks are, and it reads, I said its armor perks are and it reads, but its exotic functionality is powered melee final blows unleash a damaging explosion. Finishers and final blows against more powerful targets increase the radius and damage of the explosion. And with all of the stuff that we have equipped on our fragments, with the void explosions, volatile finishers cause explosions, abilities cause enemies to explode. We have tons of explosions happening, and you don't have to worry about dying because you have so much survivability with Navigator and Devour and all of these things happening around you. We have 2 harmonic reserve mods, and then just void resistance. Pretty self-explanatory. Finishers, powered melees. That's what you're looking for. Do it as often as you can, wherever you can, because you more than likely will not die as long as you're doing it proper. In our arm slot, we have impact induction. So when causing damage with our powered melees, you get a reduction to your grenade cooldown, and then vice versa. Causing damage with a grenade cooldown or grenade reduces your melee cooldown. And lastly, harmonic loader. And I apologize if I'm speaking fast. I just don't want this video to last forever for you guys, but I hope you get the gist of the build and you can see how fun it is, and hopefully you take it for a spin yourself. And then also get ready for the solar one, because it plays a little bit different, but it is, in my opinion, just as fun, if not more fun or more viable. And both of these are 50 Pantheon runs in the background that you see. In the top head slot, just harmonic siphon mods just to get those orbs out for Devour and pick those up whenever there's no void breaches available. Just get a kill with your GL or your Hammerhead or whatever it is, void or whatever you know siphon mod you have equipped, and heavy ammo finder. And also, let's dive into the artifact and see if there's anything that synergizes in this for this. Yes, no, it's void, so there isn't really. Hopefully next season, this build will be really strong. The only thing that I think we will be suffering from losing is the picking up orbs of power gives your weapons unraveling rounds, which is what is giving us our anti-barrier. So we're not losing much synergy when the season ends on this because we're not rocking too much solar. It's all void based. This is, I think, a really good build that's going to last into the future, even possibly with Prismatic coming out. And I feel like Severance Enclosure with Prismatic could be pretty crazy. I'm really curious to see how that functions as well. This has been a long-lost exotic that not too many people use. And if they do, they use it, if I'm not mistaken, with Strand a lot nowadays as well, because you have Banner of War, you know, that procs more whenever you get finishers. But I feel like this is also acceptable, and it's a really fun build to play. And if you're a Void sucker for Void, I think this might be the one for you. But yeah, that's the build. I hope you guys enjoy it. Like I said, be on the lookout for the solar version of this, and also potentially some Warlock / Hunter builds as well. Once again, it's your boy Turkey here at SGN Hub, and peace.